Good morning. President Trump's announcement of universal tariffs on the whole world, including the European Union, is a major blow to the world economy. I deeply regret this choice. Let's be clear-eyed about the immense consequences. The global economy will massively suffer. Uncertainty will spiral and trigger the rise of further protectionism. The consequences will be dire for millions of people around the globe, also for the most vulnerable countries, which are now subject to some of the highest US tariffs, the opposite of what we wanted to achieve. The tariffs will also hurt consumers around the world. It will be felt immediately. Millions of citizens will face higher grocery bills, medication will cost more, as well as transportation. Inflation will go up, and this is hurting in particular the most vulnerable citizens.
What's up, patriots? Welcome back to Right View Nation channel, where we speak the truth, stand for freedom, and call it exactly like it is. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's dive straight into it. So today, we're reacting to a video none other than Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, basically melting down over President Trump's tough stance on trade and tariffs. And let me tell you, this speech is the perfect example of why globalist bureaucrats just don't get it. So buckle up, because I've got some thoughts.
All businesses, big and small, will suffer from day one, from greater uncertainty to the disruption of supply chains, to burdensome bureaucracy. The costs of doing business with the United States will drastically increase. And what is more, there seems to be no order in the disorder, no clear path through the complexity and chaos that is being created as all US trading partners are hit. In the past 80 years, trade between the European Union and the United States has created millions of jobs. Consumers across the Atlantic have benefited from reduced prices. Businesses have benefited from huge opportunities, leading to unprecedented growth and prosperity. And at the same time, we know that the global trading system has serious deficiencies. I agree with President Trump that others are taking unfair advantage of the current rules, and I'm ready to support any efforts to make the global trading system fit for the realities of the global economy. But I also want to be clear. Reaching for tariffs as your first and last tool will not fix it. This is why, from the outset, we have always been ready to negotiate with the United States to remove the remaining barriers to transatlantic trade. At the same time, we are prepared to respond. We are already finalizing the first package of countermeasures in response to tariffs on steel, and we're now preparing for further countermeasures to protect our interests and our businesses if negotiations fail. We will also be watching closely what indirect effects these tariffs could have, because we cannot absorb global overcapacity, nor will we accept dumping on our markets. As Europeans, we will always promote and defend our interests and our values, and we will always stand up for Europe. But there is an alternative path. It is not too late to address concerns through negotiations. This is why our Trade Commissioner, Maroš Šefčovič, is permanently engaged with his US counterparts. We will work towards reducing barriers, not raising them. So let's move from confrontation to negotiation. Finally, I would like to speak directly to my fellow Europeans. I know that many of you feel let down by our oldest ally. Yes, we must brace for the impact that this will inevitably have. Europe has everything it needs to make it through the storm. We are in this together. If you take on one of us, you take on all of us. So we will stand together and stand up for each other. Our unity is our strength. Europe has the largest single market in the world, 450 million consumers. That is our safe harbor in tumultuous times. And Europe will stand at the side of those directly impacted. We have already announced new measures to support the steel and cars sectors. Last week, we limited the amount of steel that can be imported to Europe tariff-free. This will give more breathing space to these strategic industries. Now, we will also convene strategic dialogues with the steel, the automotive, and the pharmaceutical sectors, and others will follow. Europe stands together for our business, for our citizens, and for all Europeans, and we will continue to build bridges with all those that, like us, care about fair and rules-based trade as a basis for shared prosperity. Thank you.
Right off the bat, von der Leyen calls Trump's universal tariffs a major blow to the world economy. And to that I say, good, because the world economy, as it's currently structured, is stacked against the American worker. For decades, we've been bleeding jobs, watching factories shut down, watching our middle class disappear, while global elites in Europe, China, and even here at home got richer. The EU loved that game. They could dump their steel, their pharmaceuticals, their cars into our markets, tariff-free or nearly so, while we faced mountains of red tape and tariffs just to sell anything over there. So when President Trump said America first, slapped on those tariffs and forced the world to pay attention, that was leadership. That was patriotism in action. And finally, someone was looking out for the American worker instead of caving to the international community. Von der Leyen then warns that tariffs will raise prices on groceries, medication, and transportation. Oh, the horror. But let's get real. That's a classic scare tactic, straight out of the globalist playbook. They always cry about the consumer, but never about the producer, the blue-collar guy who's been crushed by unfair foreign competition for decades. And the truth is, sometimes a short-term cost is worth a long-term win. If paying a little more means bringing jobs home, reviving our industry, and restoring American independence, I'll take that trade any day of the week. Inflation isn't caused by tariffs. It's caused by reckless government spending, money printing, and disastrous energy policies. If the EU wants to lecture someone about inflation, maybe they should clean up their own house first. Now she says all businesses will suffer from day one. Again, that's rich, coming from the head of a bureaucratic mess like the EU. If your businesses are so fragile that they collapse the second the US stops giving them free access, maybe they were propped up by unfair advantages to begin with. American businesses have been getting crushed by regulations, taxes, and one-sided trade deals for years. Trump changed that, and suddenly, the people who were making billions off us are crying foul. Spare me. She talks about being ready to negotiate. Of course they are, because Trump's tariffs worked. They felt the pressure, and now they're scrambling to the table. That's how real negotiation works. You don't beg, you don't appease, you bring leverage, and tariffs are leverage. Trump didn't start a trade war, he just stopped losing one. It's amazing what happens when America asserts itself instead of apologizing for its own success. Von der Leyen makes a big show of EU unity. But let's be honest, the EU is a fragile patchwork of bureaucrats and socialist economies that can barely agree on immigration, defense, or energy. They need American leadership more than we need their approval. Their entire model relies on U.S. military protection, U.S. economic growth, and U.S. innovation. So when they say, if you take on one of us, you take on all of us, I just laugh. The truth is, when we stand strong, they all come crawling back to the negotiating table, one by one. She brags about supporting their steel and car industries with new protections. That's fine. Do it. We've been doing it too. But don't act shocked when America stops subsidizing your growth with open markets. You want to protect your industry? Great, so do we. It's about time both sides look out for their own people. That's not nationalism. That's just common sense. Let's be real. What we're seeing here is fake outrage from a globalist who just realized the free ride is over. For decades, they've exploited America's open markets, our leniency, and our goodwill. Now that someone, President Trump, finally stood up and said, "No more," they're panicking. But that's what leadership looks like. It's not easy, it's not always polite, but it gets results. So what's the takeaway, patriots? We're not here to make Ursula von der Leyen feel comfortable. We're not here to protect the EU's fragile economy. We're here to protect American workers, American industries, and American sovereignty. Tariffs aren't about isolation. They're about leverage. They're about fairness. And they're about saying to the world, you want access to our markets? Then treat us with respect, play fair, or get left behind. Trump understood that. And whether you love him or hate him, you cannot deny. He forced the world to take America seriously again. So don't fall for the globalist fear-mongering. Stand tall, stand proud, and always stand America first. That's it for today's breakdown. Let me know in the comments what you think about the EU's meltdown and whether you support President Trump's tariff strategy. As always, stay free, stay bold, and God bless the United States of America. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you're tired of the globalist agenda and ready to put America first. See you next time, patriots.